So just a bit about my background. Former CFO, I started in Fortune 500 companies, like really, really big companies, and my soul was slowly dying. And I kept moving to smaller and smaller companies over time until I decided to venture out and start my own. So when we're talking about building a team, this is super personal. So background, Concert, we're a venture-backed incentive comp platform. So literally talk about comp every day of my life. So our big things are we're doing all the compliance work on the back end through a conversational setup. And on the front end, for your teams that have incentive comp components, we keep them motivated. Why does incentive comp motivation matter? We'll talk about it in a little bit. But I wanted to start with like where we were a few months ago. So we raised our seed round back in March. And to support our scale, we needed the best people in the world. So we needed a CS person, we needed a tech lead, and we need to hire sales. And when I started looking at the New York market, I'm like, oh crap. I thought I raised this great round, and I cannot afford to hire like anybody. So, I'm going to be like one of those sad founders who writes on Medium about like how it didn't work because I couldn't hire the right team. Which, I might still be one of those people. So where we are today, I couldn't be more happy with the team that we have. And we brought all of those people in at 60% of those rates that I flashed up there. Many of you who are more skeptical like me probably think of what Alan Shepard said on Apollo 14, where he's like, you're sitting on the tip of this rocket or you're orbiting Earth and you're like, the lowest bid contractor is the person who built this thing. And there are moments where you'll feel like that. But what I think the panel earlier said and what you heard from Ariana and Michelle is like commitment matters a lot. So yeah, we sort of got the lowest bid contractors, but they are deeply, deeply committed to what we do. So comp. These are the three traditional levers that we think about: salary and benefits, especially in the startup world, equity, and incentive comp, usually around the sales-focused role. So how are you going to commission someone? Our comp philosophy is a little bit different. So we certainly have the salary and benefits, the equity piece. Incentive comp, by nature of what we do, is so much more important to us. And actually, we see incentive comp is super powerful outside of just sales roles. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can use that more. And then the last piece, the overarching piece, the thing that you have going for you that no one does is opportunity. But we frame opportunity differently in comp conversations. So opportunity for us really means something much more tangible in dollar terms than we usually frame it. So jumping into salary and benefits, no one on your team should stress about paying their bills. If they cannot pay their rent, if they are coming to free events for free food, if they can't take like a vacation once a year to clear their brain, they're not going to be productive. So when we get to a comp conversation, in the interview process, we literally ask the question on the board: how much do you need to make so you're not worried about paying your bills and can take a vacation? And that is like hugely powerful compared to asking, how much do you want to make? Totally changes the framing of the conversation, and it has avoided us from getting into like really, I think, contentious sort of negotiations, right? You're building a team that's in it with you. Commitment matters. So like nickel and diming over $10,000 isn't what I really want to do. It signals like, okay, you said you need to make $120,000 or your kids can't go to school. Like, okay, we're just going to take that at face value and give you what you want. We also fully cover insurance premiums. So like kind of on the benefits side, again, don't worry about anything. If something bad happens, you're still taken care of. So shifting to the next piece with equity. Man, have I made bad equity decisions. mostly with other people's equity, but now I've made more, made more with my own. So like first kind of terrible, horrible hiring lesson is always have a vesting cliff. A vesting cliff. So do not let everything vest right away. We got into kind of penny wise, pound foolish discussions with one of our first hires about having equity that, you know, trading off 5 points or so of equity with like a very senior person. Instead of giving those 5 points and letting it vest on the normal terms, we actually said, fine, we'll accelerate some of your vesting. Horrible decision. The person who does not want their equity to vest probably is not seeing themselves there for the long run. The second thing is change the conversation about equity. When I talk to my team and my candidates about the equity that we're giving, it's not that I am gifting you this equity. Congratulations. It is you are investing alongside me, the other employees, and our investors. This is your money that is going back into the company. And that, again, really significant shift in how you're presenting yourself to candidates. And again, you don't have the money to compete with Google. You do have like the commitment piece. So third tenet, incentive comp is hugely powerful. So we think a lot about incentive comp. We've seen over 100 incentive comp plans in our platform. We've worked with behavioral psychologists and neuroscientists to figure out what incentive comp actually does to people. When you're getting an incentive, it fires up the neural pathways that open you up to learning. So if you think about incentive comp as a learning tool, there are a few things that you would do. You would focus it around the things that you really need done. So very tactical things. You would pay on process. So it doesn't really matter if you got it right, if you close that deal. It matters that you went through the right motion. You set targets that allow your team to develop mastery, especially if you're hiring millennials. Attitudinally, this generation cares a lot about mastering a skill. And then you realize that you don't need to overpay for all this other expertise that you don't need. Oh, cool, you were like the director of marketing at American Express. Great, I don't give a crap about like 90% of what you did in your career. You're not paying for that. Critical thing about incentive comp, it doesn't work if you're not providing feedback in real time. So think back to all of your careers and think of that like annual bonus that you got paid out in March. And in March, you actually found out what you earned for the year before. Like, what did that mean to any of you? You didn't learn anything. You didn't change your behavior. You didn't move forward in your career. So last tenet is the opportunity piece. And it is you are investing in their growth, and they are investing in their growth. So the way this translates in our process is we're not afraid to talk about the next role. And the next role might be growing with us, and the next role might be in another company. So we have this amazing head of customer operations who is revenue operations leader at a bunch of marketing companies, really gets the SaaS business, gets how to structure sales teams and onboarding teams and enablement teams. Amazing. Like, we never should have gotten someone with that experience. But she was kind of bored. She didn't actually like really want to do the same thing over and over again. But no one else would let her move into a larger organization and say like, hey, you know what? Do you want to like work on marketing? Well, we're not really doing anything on marketing, so if you just want that, like, that's all yours. Go for it. So the way you frame opportunity, your titles are free. Who cares what you call anybody? Like, if someone wants to be called CEO, I don't really care. Your responsibilities, you have way more work than you can handle right now. And what you're giving to them is new perspectives and approaches that they might not get in a more structured environment. Think about subsidizing their professional development, and they internalize that they are going to earn more money in their next role because they took this role. Same reason I went to business school. In summary, again, like, no one's stressing about their bills, be wise about your equity. Incentive comp is totally useful across a bunch of different roles, and remember that you're investing in their professional development. If you guys follow any organizational psychologists, these map to economic security, tying to purpose, providing opportunities for mastery, and giving a lot of autonomy. Not a coincidence. So suggested reading and viewing. You can come to our platform to learn more about incentive comp. We host incentive comp master classes. And if you email me or connect with me on LinkedIn, happy to give you a free ticket to those. Buffer has a super, super thoughtful approach to salaries that's really transparent and inspiring. Fred Wilson's blog on equity comp, though from like a decade ago, is like the most impactful thing I've read on the topic. And if you want to understand the relationship between pay and motivation, there's a woman out of the University of Iowa named Sarah Rines who studies that for a living academically. So you see a lot of ties between that. So I have a few minutes left for questions, if anyone wants them. Oh, sorry.
Thanks, Sanj. I have two parts, but in the interest of time, you can field whatever question you want. So I'll pose both questions at you. The first one is, as you're thinking about vesting, and you think about like acquisitions, are you of the belief of single trigger or double trigger works better for the employee? And then the second one is, I think you alluded to that millennials are more conscious of a long-term incentive comp. And so if you're thinking about that, beyond cash bonuses and everything else that's standard industry practice, what are the things that you see have worked effectively in current state and future state 5 years into the future?
Sure. I will try to answer those succinctly. So with equity, we're all double trigger. And it ties back to purpose and commitment. So we say, if you really believe in bringing the change about that we're trying to bring, then regardless of who actually owns the company, you should still want to do that work. Oh, sure. Double trigger is change of control and you're terminated. Single trigger is just change of control. So someone buys your company. And then the other piece, so we can talk about it a little bit more offline. So the generational changes in like your workforce actually mean that probably long-term incentives aren't super motivating in a lot of ways. So both millennials and Gen Z don't seem to care as much about long-term incentives.
Last question for in the front.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what do you think about the period of time for vesting cliff? Should it be different for senior management and juniors?
We try to keep it consistent. So we do a 1 year for everybody, and then 4 years kind of total vesting. Or 4 years total, 1 year cliff.